My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 141 of Legally Clueless. Thank you for rocking with this podcast. Join our online fam on Instagram. We're at Legally Clueless Podcast. That space is growing. It's such a warm yellow space. There's a link to that page in the show notes. Make sure as well, if you want to chit chat about the podcast on Twitter, just use the hashtag Legally Clueless. I appreciate all the tweets that I see while stalking you. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you for making it easier for me to stalk you by using that hashtag. I also would love you to check out our YouTube channel if you're new to this podcast. It's our newest baby on which you'll find season 1 of our video series. You'll find a 5-part tour where we go from Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, and Paris. And we have just started season 2 of the Legally Clueless video series on our YouTube channel. Episode 1 went out on Friday. It's getting so much love because the storyteller in that episode she's got such good energy. Oh my goodness. So here's a story about this particular storyteller. Her name is Ray. Ray is a radio presenter. She used to be on Homeboys Radio. That's how I first got to meet her. And now she's on Sound City in Kenya. I am very particular about who I do interviews with, just because I find that quite a few interviewers in especially like traditionally set up broadcast stations. Can you hear me trying to choose my words well? Anyway, I find that a lot of the either radio presenters or TV presenters are very lazy. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone for an interview and I've had to, before we go on air, edit the questions that the presenter is going to ask me, even though prior to the interview I've sent like a deck on whatever project it is that I'm focusing on, just in depth, because I've been on the other side, so I understand it. But people just wouldn't read it. When you come on the show, they're like scheming through it, and I don't like going through that. So anyway, as I go on a rant about them instead of focusing on Ray's awesomeness, I remember when I left my job at Kiss FM, I believe I was pushing another podcast I'd started, and Legally Clueless, and so I was doing a media tour, and going on Ray's show was like a no-brainer for me because her energy, the research she puts into understanding what her guest is about, and also bringing you into her space in terms of her show, and her energy is just she's such sunshine. It's amazing. Anyway, here's a snippet of what story she shared in episode 1 of season 2 of the Legally Clueless video series.
So we started to save. Now, when they say love is blind, man, there's red flags that you see afterwards. Man, we did save. Now, Corona, the pandemic had happened. I tried the whole with my own accounts and stuff, but I think because media was laying off people, banks were very, very hesitant to give you a backing, like a loan or something. I hadn't joined a SACCO at that time, but he had, although his account was dormant. I feel stupid saying it now. So we saved in his account. Guys, it was not joint. I was just on trust and love because I thought, it's ours, we're gonna eventually do this.
Yeah, so make sure you go check out her episode. It's just, the funny thing is, I really do identify with that episode, and we didn't even know this. It's after we shot the episode. I was telling her, I went through very similar things where immediately my mom died, I got into a very wrong relationship. I've said this before on this podcast. It's one of those relationships that everyone around me knows we just pretend it never happened. Hey. It just never happened. Oof. Even just thinking about it, anyway. Turns out when you lose somebody, especially somebody who's super close to you, there's a void, a huge void, a very huge void, and you don't want to confront that emptiness. You want to instead fill it with something or someone, and that's how I ended up in that relationship, to be quite frank. And Ray kind of went through the same thing, and she talks about it in the story. And even in that terrible relationship of mine, there was a finances issue. Not in terms of exactly like raise, which is like savings, but just in terms of, I don't know if you've ever been in relationships where you find yourself almost like being used financially, and it's not in your face, so it takes you a while to figure out like, whoa, what's happening? That was the case for me. And so I completely identified with Ray's story. So I think you should check it out. I've put a link to our YouTube channel in the show notes. I don't know why I went on a rant. No, it was just fascinating that we'd been through such similar things. Check out the show notes. Make sure you watch Ray's episode. The next episode is going to be out this Friday, which is the 26th of November. It features a very good friend of mine. We've been friends since high school, like pre-university high school. And he's just such an awesome person. And so 26th November is going to be a new episode out. Of course, once season 2 starts, that means for the next 13 weeks, every single Friday, there's a new episode. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications, join the gang there. Okay, let's get back to this episode and far away from exes that we're trying to forget. I'm really excited about the story that's in this episode. Listen to this.
Because my hustle started when I was in Form 2. After classes in the evening, I would hop into Matatus for the evening squads, the rush hour. Matatu is quite tricky. I would wake up at around 5:30. At that time, there was money in Matatu industry, 4,500 there per day. When I started Matatu, I was around 16. So after that trip, we went to a place called Mbuya Town, deep past Kampala, deep in Uganda. People don't know English, people don't know Swahili, so you just struggle. Then I got a job in a certain hardware in Eldoret. So they needed a lorry driver. I had never driven a lorry before. We're giving you a job. I was like, okay, thank you. That was my first time working with the Asians.
That was the first story we recorded during our tour in August when we were in Kisumu. And I can't wait for you to hear it, because it's like the first time we've ever recorded such a story. And it's just, I love how diverse the stories that end up on this podcast are. Yeah, so that's coming up a little later in this episode. The song of the week is a song that I always go to whenever I go into like a deep zone of creating, which is somewhere I'm in now because I'm writing a lot of poetry. There is something I want to do with my poetry maybe like a year from now, and I don't want to put it out there because I don't want you to hold me accountable in case I talk myself out of it. So all I'll say is like, I'm really losing myself in poetry, which is one of my most favorite things to do. And whenever I go into those ruts of creation, like the one song I really love listening to is by India Ree, and the name of the song is Always in My Head, because when I listen to the song, obviously maybe I could be wrong because I'm not the one who wrote it, I feel like it's almost like her ode to music, her expressing how deeply in love she is with this art. And I remember first listening to that song when I was in IB, I think, like pre-uni days or early uni days, around there, immediately feeling like this is exactly what I feel about poetry. And so whenever I'm writing or whatever, or I just want to zone out, I want to like jumpstart my writing from like a writer's block season, this is one of the songs I listen to. So I've put a link to it in the show notes. I hope you like it as much as I do. I mean, it's India Ree. She is awesome and can do no wrong. So check out the song. All right, let me share what I'm grateful for this week. Shockingly, I have something on my gratitude list. Amen. You know, like, I just never know when that week is going to be that I'm just like, fuck this, I'm not grateful for anything, because there are zones like that and it's okay to feel what you're feeling. But that's not this week. This week there's something on my list. It's like one thing, but it's like a mix. It's like a mashup. I'm very grateful that I am a free thinker stroke very self-aware. I've been self-aware for quite a long time, like from my super younger days, probably like from my end of upper primary. So that's like class 6, 7, 8, which of course is all the doing of my brilliant late mom who just met me where I was and validated who I was. So I didn't think anything was wrong with like loving poetry or just being like weird. I was quite okay with it, and I'm still quite okay with who I am. And I'm very aware of who I am, what I like, what I will not do, and that I question. I think that's a free think a bit. And so the reason I thought about this is because I've just been noticing, especially with social media, from the audience perspective, people really follow a lot of very shallow clout chasing things. And I'm not trying to be like, ooh, I'm better than everybody and whatever, and I don't consume these things from time to time. But what I realize is even in the moments that I consume them, my spirit feels a bit heavier. You know, it's just like, ugh, what was that? You know? And I really started reducing how much popular content I consume, and popular in terms of Kenya. So in terms of what's happening in like entertainment scene, or even outside, like what's trending, you would say, across various platforms. In Kenya, I find things to be very dumb. I find quite a few things to be very dumb. And I don't know how we keep engaging with such mediocre stuff, and mediocre not in terms of quality but in terms of like thought process. Like, you know, this person is creating this for clout, and so from an audience perspective it's like, why are you choosing to engage with it? And so I love that for me things are that deep where I'll just be like, yeah, this is foolish. Count me out. And then I love from a creator's perspective, being self-aware and like a free thinker. It allows me to create without the pressure of this needs to be popular, this needs to be trending, because that's very dangerous. Because you keep chasing that popular thing that most of the time would be something mediocre or something basic. And you never want to be in a situation where, first, that you're not creating something that's true to you. Second, that you're creating something that is just insulting the intelligence of those who are going to interact with it, and something that's not genuine, you know? And so this week, especially, I've been having a lot of conversations around this, and I'm just like very grateful that for years I've been comfortable with not fitting in, because now I'm not chasing that. It feels like there's a huge percentage of people online, especially on social media, who are chasing that. Wow, I have spoken for so long. Let's jump into the story. Good Lord. This, as I said, was the first story we recorded in Kisumu. It's a story by Jobu. For those of you who are not from Kenya or have not had any interaction in Kenya, when he talks about Matatu, that is our public transport vans. They're basically either like 14-seaters or 20-something seaters, public transport vans. But for us, there's a huge like graffiti culture around them. Yeah, if you hear him talk about Matatu, just know that's what he's referring to. And his story is really around his passion for driving that led him to be like driving Matatus when he was 16 years old. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
I'm Oando Nyandieka Job. I was born and raised in Eldoret, but currently I live in Kisumu. My hustling journey is quite interesting because my hustle started when I was in Form 2. After classes in the evening, I would hop into Matatus for the evening squads, the rush hour. Yeah, they call it squaddy. Yeah, in quotes. So that was where my hustle started. That was where I became very passionate about cars, because before I was passionate, but then it became very interesting. So most of the time I would think of cars in Form 2 more than I was before. So I used to do that until I was done with high school. Then immediately after high school, I got my driving license. Wow, God was great. And I started now my full-time hustling. Yeah, Matatu is quite tricky because I would wake up at around 5:30. Those were the times, 4:30, 5, 4. It depends with the day because Eldoret is quite a lazy city. So the busiest days were actually from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, because there was a University of Eldoret. So yeah, when the students used to go to rave, so we would wake up really early to pick them from the clubs. Sometimes we would go and be there at the club so that wherever they want to go, you just there. So you'll park the car somewhere and then you get into the club, enjoy with them, but then in your mind, you are hustling, as in, maybe I'll make my first trip at around 3, the second one, third. So by the time it's daybreak, you're already done with your target. At that time, there was money in Matatu industry. So like the total we used to make was around 9,000, 10,000. So if we were done with the expenses like fuel, our salary, the remaining would be around 5 or 4,500 there per day. When we have eaten, kwanza hiyo party ya kukula, tukuwa tunacheka. We would go to Isli, Eldoret. You know Isli? It's a popular joint in Eldoret where it's the only place you'll find fish, fresh fish. So we would go there, park, we eat. That was around 500 each. So we'll take lunch, 1K. Yeah, then we go back hustling. So as long as we are done with this target, and this target was 4,200. So the rest we knew I would balance it. And we used to write the book, but then I used to write the book in the evening. So I was good at balancing things. From 6:30 to around 8:38. So I could make like 3-4 trips. Yeah, from town CBD to Junction. There is an area called Junction. When I started Matatus, I was around 16, 17. I used to take the advantage that police were not there in the evening. And then people believed in me, as in they were like, this boy is a driver, a real good driver. I remember one incident. There's a certain hill. There's a place called Subaru. There was a driver, as in, he was just an aged man around maybe 40s, nearing his 50s. So I was hanging in the car because I didn't used to pay fare. So those times, the 14-seater used to carry 18 people. So and then when we reached that hill, there was a jam. Do you know the guy alishindwa? Like hill start. It was really hard for him. So the conductor was like, hey, get down. This boy atutolei gari up. And then there's the passengers were looking at me very weirdly. So they were like, hey, this guy is here to kill us. So I was like, okay, Matatus don't have handbrake and stuff. So I was like, weka moja na uzime. Yeah, gear number 1. Then he switched off the engine. Then I went into the driver's seat, ignited the vehicle, and nikaipandisha mlima nikamwekea mbele after the hill.
16, 17.
Imagine, I used to like fashion that time. So I used to spend my money on clothes, shoes. Yeah, I wanted to look nice. So after high school, I did Matatus for around 6 months. And then after those 6 months, a friend of mine came to Eldoret and he had a truck. So I was like, eesh, we were just with you the other day, so I have to go with you. Do you know, I nilipeana skudi actually. Off we went to Uganda. And we went, I told him, now show me how to drive this beast. So he told me to watch, and I observed him very keenly. It was the huge one, Actress 2546. I will never forget. KCD. It was a KCD one, a green one. I still remember it up to date. Yeah, so off we went. Yeah, he drove to a place called Juakali. And so now he told me, I hope you've observed enough. I was like, yeah, I've seen. So he told me, now come to the driver's seat. I hopped in. Wow. The first time I caught that steering, it's huge. Wow. The seat is, it uses pressure. It's more of hydraulic. So it measures your weight, then it suspends itself. So the lighter you are, the more it comes up. So when you sit, it goes down, and then it looks, inakuweka tu maji huko. Dopest feeling. So off we started the journey. Wow. As in, everything was just nice. I drove from Juakali to Busia. It was at night. So we stopped at a place called Luandeti. There was some cargo we were dropping for a guy. So when we stopped there, we alighted, and then he told me, now, umezoea matatu sana. This thing, don't apply brake so much. Yeah, because the discs were red, hotter than hot. So he was like, yeah, you're using too much brake. This is not a Matatu, this is a truck. So there's a way he taught me. He was a good teacher. I still remember him. He's still doing trucking. I guess right now, yeah, he does in South Sudan. So after that trip, we went to a place called Mbuya Town, deep past Kampala, deep in Uganda. People don't know English, people don't know Swahili, so you just struggle. We would hop into a hotel and you point the food someone is eating. Yeah, because there are people, they didn't understand English, they didn't know Swahili. We'll just talk in sign language and try to emulate their language. So you're like, I need milk. So amata, like that. Jangu. So actually, I used to, the guy after we were back in Kenya, he left me in Eldoret. So he went back to Mombasa. I continued with my Matatu, but anytime he will reach Eldoret, he had to call me. So I leave my Matatu, we go with him, we get back. I light in Eldoret, he goes to Mombasa. I left Matatu now. I just felt like I needed to be alone and do my own stuff. So I was back at home, doing nothing. I used to go for squads, the track one. When he used to come, when he was in Eldoret, we used to head to Uganda, Rwanda, and back. Then I got a job in a certain hardware in Eldoret. So they needed a lorry driver. I had never driven a lorry before. A friend of mine called me and he was like, hey, why are you staying at home and there's a job? You can drive a truck. I told him, yeah, there's a lorry. I was like, okay. Wow, so it was very interesting. So I went, they asked for my DL and everything. So those requirements, the requirements. We're giving you a job. I was like, okay, thank you. That was my first time working with the Asians. I was given a lorry, KBS, I still remember, a Tatawan, and the steering was manual. Hey. Now I was around 19. Yeah, so I was given the lorry. I hustled it around 2 months. I quit the job. Told them, I can't handle this steering. It's killing me. The steering was manual, as in vehicles right now use power steering, right? So the power steering system of that lorry was dead. So you had to apply force. My manpower was the power steering. And it was really hard, especially when it was loaded. I even had blisters on my this is not a job. I quitted that job. Then I was home for around 6 months. But I used to go for Matatu during weekends because that was when Matatu had money. Actually, I used to feel like maybe I should go back to school. But then I was, no. These students, sometimes they had no money, so they used to wait for me to carry it. So I was like, I'm better. So I used to tell them, by the way, someni nitakuja niwaandike kazi. Yeah, we used to joke a lot and I had a lot of friends, including the lecturers even. I had so many friends. I was their favorite actually. They were like, if it's not a Matatu driven by Jobu, then we're not going. They used to call me. Imagine people have gone for a rave. They're calling you're in Uganda with a truck. They're like, hey, come pick us. I was like, okay, I got you. So I would call another person to go pick them. So after those around 6-7 months, these people who employed me again called me. They were like, hey, you're a good driver and you left. It was our fault actually. You never did us wrong. You never did. Okay, the drivers were thieves. They used to sell a lot of things. Tunapatiwa gunia msumari anaenda anafungua anashona tena. Hey, yeah, it was real. So, as in, my work was full of integrity, and I was very transparent. Whenever I was agitated, I would go to the boss direct. Namwambia, huyu ananiletea kelele. So, ni aliniandika ama ni wewe. So, they understood me because nilikuwa naboeka haraka. So, I left the work. So, after those 7 months, they called me back. So, they were like, okay, the problem was power steering. Now we have a new car for you. And I was given a new lorry, KCH. Wow. So they told me, this is your vehicle. You'll be starting work today. So I did the work for around again 8 months. And then that time I had anger issues. I used to get furious really quick. So there was a certain, he was just my age mate. I was older than him. Yeah, a Nation guy. So we had an argument kidogo. We were closing, so I was taking my car inside the go down so that they shut. So he was like, why are you getting the car inside? I told him time. No. You're stupid. You're full. Hey. Nikashuka. So I was like, yeah. What did you just say? He grabbed the watchman's rungu and threw it at me. Hey. I don't know. I reached him within seconds. I blew him out. I gave him some punches and I went to the station and took a P3 against him. I had a friend of mine, he's a lawyer, called Rich. Yeah, it's like this. So, and I came back now after a day. I had a bandage on my leg because he threw the rungu at me. It really harmed me. So, but then I really beat him up to pia kichapo. So I came back with my P3, stamps zote ziko, and I was like, yeah, you have to know this is Kenya. Actually, that was what I told him. Yeah, I quit the job. So we talked to the boss. I told him, no, I can't talk with you. You just need to come. We see things because this boy, actually, he was an in-law to one of the senior people at work. So I was like, I can't work anymore. So after I quit the job, I got now I started doing trips now, the Scudi with trucks. So I was there stationed in Eldoret. So I was designated driver. So people will come, the ones who live in Eldoret. When they reach in Eldoret, they give me their trucks. I deliver, then I bring it back to them. They go back to Mombasa. So that was the hassle. One trip will give me around 6,000-7,000, and I will go in like 2-3 days to the maximum. Mind you, I'm eating, I sleep well, as in. So after that, then there was a time I was really low. Now the depression part. So I felt like everything wasn't going the right way, and like I had expected. Love is a beautiful thing, but again, it's poison. Yeah, so yeah, I had really invested my feelings and myself into that, and then shit happened. So I was like, mimi niache tu. Yeah, so I was really down for almost 6 months. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit. Yeah, so I went back home. I used to talk to no one. I used to sleep. I could sleep the whole day and still sleep the whole night. I don't know how I used to manage that. Yeah, ulikuwa unalala unaamka unapumzika then unaendelea kulala. Yeah, so that was life, and afterwards I went back to Matatu again. I did Matatu for almost a year, and then I got another job with a lorry. So I did the job for around 5 months until the owner sold the lorry. So if I went to Matatu again, I was in Matatu. Then the terms, you see, in Matatu, those bosses, there is a way they treat people. I told them, you can't enslave me. So back to lorries and truck squads. Yeah, until now I decided, no more driving. Actually, I said, I don't want to drive anymore. If this is the way people are getting treated, then, as in, people sometimes treat drivers as if they're not humans. There was a time I asked my boss, okay, you're treating me like trash, and you're entrusting me with your car worth millions. And then I took him around the truck. I told him, how much is this tire? Together with the rim, the air inflated. So I told him, just see how much you're entrusting me with and see the respect you're giving me. He was quiet. I quitted the job again. As in, that time I had anger issues. So this time I decided no more working. I just wanted to reconstruct myself. It wasn't easy. I decided to be alone. I used to pray a lot, and then I just decided, I saw that this was something I couldn't do on my own. I used to tell God, I get jobs and then I just leave them. I don't know why. So I know I get agitated real quick, but then it's not my fault because I don't get agitated for no reason. I started changing slowly, gradually, and then I started the feeling of when you talk to me, I digest it. Kitambo, someone will just come, like friends or something. Maybe you are concentrating on something. He comes to you, hey, Jobu ni aje? Me jam. So As in, I started digesting things, and then the best therapy I saw was I used to keep myself in that someone's shoe. Madharau ama labda nimemkosea. I also realized that I wasn't perfect, so many faults, maybe it was mine, and it was a reflection of what I had done. So after that, I started now becoming calm, up to date. Someone might do a thing and then mwangalie tu, and I leave. Oh, my hustle now, I'm a truck driver. I'm driving here in Kisumu. It's a famous company around. We go to Sori, we go to Mbita, we go to Budalangi, we go to Nandi, as in we are all around this region. Yeah, we deal with concrete products, and I'm back and I'm enjoying, actually with also Asian guys again. But this time my boss is the best, actually. What I would say, I'm still young, I am not old. I'm only 26. We expect a lot and then we are choosy. That is the biggest problem with us. As in, we choose a lot. No, I can't be a chef. No, I can't be a driver. I can't be a mechanic. All of us can't fit in offices. And sometimes we make more money than the people in the offices. I had a friend of mine, he's called Jobu, like me. He was a banker, I used to carry him. So he was like, hey, you people make a lot of money even than us. Then I joked with him, but I told him, your credit, I told him, the problem is, when you need to apply a loan, you'll get a higher loan limit. They don't even know me. You have a payslip. Yeah, so I told him, you have an advantage, you have a payslip. We make money on daily basis, and that's very dangerous. There's nothing as bad as you sleeping and knowing the next day I'm like 2,000 rich. So you might squander this today, and because tomorrow, you just know tomorrow is there. That was what I hated Matatus with. I will make money and then the money will just vanish. Unajitisha kama mkutano, so I had 2,000 yesterday. I haven't gone anywhere. Where is this money? Yeah, so I decided to be doing Matatus on weekends because there was no difference. Whether I work the whole week and I do it during the weekend. For the younger generation than us, I will tell them, as at 17 at least you know whatever you want in life. And before I talk of the kids, maybe the parents too, if your child has a passion with something, if it's earlier, just encourage him to continue the education because it's good. Communication and also manners, you see, that's all about education, civilization. But then if he or she has a passion for something, support, you never know. My own brother is a really talented footballer, but my mom shut his dreams. And I always blame mom up to date. The boy was real awesome. In primary, he was all over the newspapers and he was a real good striker. But then mom burnt his shoes and his ball, and from that day, he changed up to date. Broke what? We always tell mom, and she cries a lot, but we told him. But he's still passionate about football. Akiingia kiwanja sahi hamwezi muona. Yeah, so parents, if you see your children have a passion for something or they're interested in anything, please support. Yeah, my dad supported me. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, though we used to brush shoulders because he's a church guy in Watu. Yeah, you get me. Yeah, he's a pastor. I love him a lot. I always feel like I owe him a lot because he paid for my license. He paid, even this work I'm doing is the one who connected me. So I always feel like I owe him a lot. I used to know how to drive. To place the gear and move the vehicle, but I didn't know how to change the gears. So he taught me that from number 1 to 2, 3. He taught me now how to exchange the gears, how to brake. I owe him a lot.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. I really enjoyed recording this story. It gave me a perspective into an industry and a world that I'd only interacted with like very lightly before. I think Jobu is just so real and I love that. And I also really felt the bit where he said people treat drivers like they're not human. And I think we've all seen this in one way or another, and it's like unfortunately so true. But yeah, this is really such a good example as to why I love storytelling and hearing other people's stories. It just connects you with others in a very powerful way. It makes you introspect. You learn things from stories. Storytelling is so powerful, and I'm just so glad we have such diverse stories here on this podcast from different Africans, and this is just one of them, you know. So remember that if you hear something on this podcast, speaking of the podcast, that you resonate with and you want to chit chat about it, you can record a voice note and send that to our Legally Clueless hotline, which is +254 768-628-790. Of course, you can send that via WhatsApp. If you are in Kenya, you can catch this podcast on Trace Radio every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. and 12 noon, and every Friday at 12 noon. All you need to do is go to traceradio.co.ke to stream Trace there, or to get a list of the Trace frequencies around the country. I have to end this episode here. I'm actually recording it at 2 a.m. on Sunday because I'm traveling tomorrow at 3 a.m. I don't want to share where I'm going just yet, but it's very exciting and I'm super nervous. And so I don't want to jinx it. I just want to get there, do what I'm meant to do. Hopefully all goes well. I'll definitely talk about it in the next episode. But yeah, I need to end the podcast here so that I can pack. I have not packed. So I'm recording this surrounded by like my open suitcase and like bags of knickknacks that I bought and clothes that I don't need, but I bought. I'm surrounded by a mess in my office right now. So I need to end this episode so I can get to packing. And in the next week's episode, I'll be able to share where the heck I'm going and how it went. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.